Today's number is 68, as in 68%. That is the one day gain for a company you probably have never heard of until yesterday on the stock market. The chip company that trains the AI tools you use every week opened on NASDAQ, and Wall Street voted with its wallet. 68% jump in one day, and it's IPO day. Hang on to that number for a moment. We'll come back to it in the lead. Well, it's Friday. Happy Friday. We made it. The weekend's finally here. Yesterday on the show, we said the door just opened. Small businesses, your Android phone, and new audiences for AI across the board. Today, the companies behind those products are fighting each other over who actually controls the market. OpenAI is lawyering up against Apple. The Musk versus OpenAI jury just got the case. Cisco cut 4,000 people on a record revenue day. And the most absurd image of the week, the president of the United States detoured his plane to Alaska to pick up the NVIDIA CEO on the way to Beijing to sell chips. We'll get all to that in a moment here. I'm Don Michalik, and this is your morning intelligence for Friday, May 15th, 2026. All right, in today's preview, in the lead, we have OpenAI, who is preparing to sue Apple over the ChatGPT integration into Siri. All that per Bloomberg. Closing arguments wrapped yesterday in the Musk versus OpenAI trial. The jury has the case, and Cisco cut 4,000 people on a record revenue day. And Cerebras, the AI chip company that just IPO'd, closed up 68% on day one, about $95 billion in capital. In the deep cut, Google's next AI agent leaked yesterday. It runs in the background on your phone. It books flights, it writes emails, and per Google's own disclaimer, it may make purchases without even asking. We'll get into that. Google I/O kicks off this Monday. And we close with the president of the United States picking up Jensen Huang in Alaska. Yes, that actually happened. Let's go ahead and get into it. Late on Wednesday night, Bloomberg broke the story. OpenAI has hired outside counsel to prepare legal action against Apple over the ChatGPT integration inside of Siri. Per Bloomberg, with follow-on confirmation from TechCrunch, CNBC, Mac Rumors, 95Mac, and Apple Insider, there's some quick context here. The Apple OpenAI deal was announced about 2 years ago. The promise was this: Siri would route certain questions to ChatGPT. Apple users would get GPT class answers without even leaving their iPhone. When the deal was signed, OpenAI thought it would be worth billions a year in subscription revenue alone. Well, 2 years later, OpenAI executives are, quote, per Bloomberg, increasingly frustrated. The grievance is the Ask GPT handoff is buried inside of Siri. It's hard to find. Features that were supposed to ship, well, they didn't. Subscription revenue from iPhone users, nowhere close to the projections. OpenAI's outside firm is now exploring their options up to a formal breach of contract notice. Now, here is the part the OpenAI leak did not lead with. Apple has its own grievances, per the same Bloomberg report. Apple says OpenAI's privacy standards are inconsistent with Apple's, and Apple is reportedly irritated that OpenAI is building consumer hardware, led by Apple's former chief designer, Jony Ive, that competes with the iPhone. Well, let's talk about the timing here. OpenAI is expected to wait until the Musk versus OpenAI trial wraps before making any formal move. That trial wrapped yesterday. And we should say it in plain English. As of today, no lawsuit has been filed. OpenAI has hired a firm, but they have not pressed send yet. Well, why does this matter? Well, here's why it matters. There are roughly 1.4 billion active iPhones on the planet. A very large chunk of them have the ChatGPT integration sitting inside of Siri. You've probably seen it if you have an iPhone. You may have even tried it once. You may have given up, or you may use it all the time. Who knows? That verbatim is what OpenAI is now preparing to sue over. For the last 2 years, the AI on your iPhone has been a half handshake between two companies that did not actually even like each other to begin with because they saw the world just a little bit differently from one another. So here's a nudge for you. If you've used the Ask ChatGPT through Siri and thought it felt, I don't know, half finished? Well, you're right. OpenAI agrees with you. Apple says it's a little bit more complicated than that. And the next version of AI on your iPhone, a deeper ChatGPT integration, a Siri rebuild from scratch, or maybe even the Gemini deal, depends on which side gets the better lawyer over the next 60 days. WWDC is kicking off in June 8th, 3 weeks from today. Whatever Apple announces there about Siri or AI, read it as an opening statement. The bottom line here for 2 years, the AI on the most sold device in human history has been an awkward partnership and it's shown up a little awkwardly in the UI. This week, the partnership came apart in public. To read that back, neither side has filed a single piece of paper yet, but they're starting to fling words across each other in the open market. All right, let's go ahead and get into today's rundown. In our first story, yesterday was the day the lawyers talked in the Musk versus OpenAI trial. Per Washington Post, CNBC, Axios, US News, and a little bit on the AP Wire as well. Closing arguments landed Thursday morning to Judge Yvonne Gonzalez Rogers' Oakland courtroom. Musk's lead attorney told the jury OpenAI violated its nonprofit mission. He cited 5 witnesses who called Sam Altman, quote, a liar. He accused executives of pursuing personal gain through stock grants and self dealing. OpenAI's counsel pushed back on that. Musk's $38 million in donations carried no specific strings attached. And the part they may have missed, and a lot of us missed, Musk himself wanted to turn OpenAI for profit, but only if he could control the business or merge it into Tesla. The most quotable moment of the day came from Musk's own lawyer, who apologized to the jury for Musk's absence. Musk was in Beijing with President Trump. The NVIDIA CEO was there too. He got to go a little bit later. Musk is asking for two things here: Sam Altman's ouster from the OpenAI board and unspecified damages. A verdict is possible as early as next week. So what? Well, again, if you use ChatGPT at work, and a lot of people do, the verdict could change who runs the company that builds it. Pricing, availability, free tier limits, it's all in play. Set a calendar reminder for next Friday. That is when this becomes news again. All right, our second story in the rundown. Another large American company announced its strongest quarter in years. And like other large American companies that announce very strong quarters, they announced its biggest layoff of the year at the same time. Again, per TechCrunch, Fox News, Yahoo Finance, Seeking Alpha, and 24/7 Wall Street, they all had this beat. Cisco reported quarterly revenue of fiscal Q3 2026. Alongside it, CEO Chuck Robbins sent an internal memo announcing fewer than 4,000 job cuts, about 5% of Cisco's workforce. The stated reason: shift investment towards AI. Sounds familiar, right? Cybersecurity, data center networking, all that was in play too. Notifications began yesterday. Most of you probably don't work for Cisco. So why does this matter? Well, because it's the fifth name on the same list this month: Meta, PayPal, Coinbase, Cloudflare, now Cisco. Every one of them posted very strong financial numbers and then turned around and announced AI driven headcount cuts in the exact same week. The 2026 playbook is now publicly visible: strong revenue, AI investment, headcount reduction, all in the same press release. So, again, here's another question to sit with. If your company is having a strong quarter and your CEO is talking about AI transformation on the next all hands, what comes after that conversation? The playbook is the playbook, and it's something to keep an eye on. Don't panic, just take notice. All right, our third story in the rundown. The AI chip company you probably didn't even know about yesterday opened on NASDAQ at $350 and closed the day worth roughly $95 billion in capital. Per CNBC, Bloomberg, Yahoo Finance, Coindesk, and Kiplinger had this one as well. Cerebras priced its IPO Wednesday night at $185 a share, above the marketed range. The stock opened yesterday on NASDAQ under the ticker CBRS at 350, closed at 311 and 7 cents, up 68% on the day. Market cap at the close, about $95 billion. The IPO itself raised $5.5 billion, the largest US tech IPO of the year thus far. You do not have to buy the stock to get the message. The chip Cerebras makes trains AI models. The same Cerebras chips sit somewhere underneath ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. You can almost guarantee it. What Wall Street did yesterday in one trading session was price in years more of AI infrastructure demand. Translation: the AI build out is not a 2026 story. This is going to be a multi year one. The companies pivoting their products and their people towards AI right now are betting on that same timeline. So your employer probably is as well. A quick footnote here: Cerebras revenue is concentrated. Again, I talked about this yesterday. About 90% of its revenue comes from just two customers: OpenAI and AWS. That's worth tracking, not for the reason to write off the move per se, but there is an image here and it's a risky one. The chip company behind the tools you use just doubled in one day. The AI economy is not slowing down by any stretch of the imagination, and this is just another tick in the win column for AI. All right, if you're enjoying Morning Intelligence, do me a quick favor today. Send this episode to just one person. That friend who keeps texting you, hey, is my job safe from AI? Or hey, what's going on with this crazy thing called artificial intelligence? You know who they are. If you send this episode to them, they get a little bit smarter and you help the show grow. And I'd greatly appreciate it if you shared it with them. Thank you so much. All right, let's get into today's deep cut. Yesterday afternoon, four Android beta trackers, 9 to 5 Google, Android Authority, Testing Catalog, and Sammy Fans pulled apart the latest Google app beta, version 17.23, published yesterday. What they found inside is the AI agent Google plans to announce Monday at I/O. It's called Gemini Spark. Here's what it actually is. Well, today, Gemini is a straight chatbot. You open the app, you type, you wait, it answers. And once you get the answer, you open up another chat, you talk to it again, and you just kind of iterate on top of that. Well, Gemini Spark, per the leak, runs in the background proactively. You don't see it happening. Across the apps and accounts you have connected to your Google profile. It's very continuous and it's very silent. The specifics from the leak code here. Gemini Spark can declutter your inbox. It can summarize newsletters before you even open them. It can prepare a meeting brief from your calendar and email history. It can, and these are the live wires here, actually book flights for you. It can make purchases, pull data from your chat history, your schedule, your location, and any website you logged into. Kind of crazy, kind of scary, but there's some awesomeness here as well. And here's the verbatim disclaimer Google's own beta surfaces. Quote, the feature is experimental and may do things like share your information or make purchases without asking. End quote. That's Google's own copy there, inside the own product. Why is this worth your time? Well, for 2 years, AI on your phone has been something you summon. You open ChatGPT, you ask Claude, you launch Gemini, you pull up Perplexity, you pull up all these tools. It's an active behavior you actually have to do. This is the inversion. AI that runs whether you open it or not, across your phone, across your accounts, your data, your money. Kind of crazy and kind of scary to think about. Yesterday's show covered Google rebuilding Android around AI. That was a rebrand. Gemini Spark is the feature, the actual capability that does the work in the background. And it ships out of preview as early as this summer. Pixel 10 and Galaxy S26 first, then everything else. Here's another nudge for you. This weekend, here, just to open up your phone. Look at the apps you have given accounts access to. Look at the data those apps already share. Look at the payment methods you already have shared on your phone. Now, ask yourself one question. Of everything on this phone, what am I comfortable with an agent doing on my behalf without asking me first? Make that list, 2 columns, yes, please, and absolutely not. Because Monday morning at Google I/O, the company is going to ask you to grant some version of that permission. And it's good to show up with an answer. The takeaway here: yesterday we told you Google was making Android an AI phone. Today we got to look at the agent that does the actual work on that phone. And the disclaimer says it may not necessarily even ask first. Again, something to keep in mind. All right, some fun stuff here to sign off of the week. Yesterday, President Trump flew to Beijing to meet with President Xi. The agenda: trade, geopolitics, among the items, AI chip exports to China. On the way, Air Force One made a pit stop in Alaska to pick up a very special passenger. That passenger was Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, the company whose chips trained every major AI model on the planet. Per CNBC, Reuters, Bloomberg, Yahoo Finance, and US News, there's the result here. The US cleared the sale of NVIDIA's H200 chips, the company's second most powerful AI training chip to roughly 10 Chinese firms. Think Alibaba, Tencent, ByteDance, and JD.com. The deal has a unique structure. The US would take 25% of the revenue. The chips would route through US territory before shipment. Then this happened. Beijing told its own companies not to take the delivery. The stated concern? Well, possible tampering. Beijing does not want its companies handling chips the US government just touched. As of last night, not a single H200 has actually shipped. So, to recap here, the US president detoured to Alaska, picked up the chip CEO, flew into Beijing to sell chips with a 25% kickback to Washington that Beijing is now refusing to receive. The most important AI supply chain story of the year played out as travel theater. Kind of crazy to think about. All right, we'll take a look at some stories over the weekend and maybe tease some things that we'll talk about on Monday. Obviously, like I've been mentioning, Google I/O kicks off. Gemini 4 is expected. Gemini Spark gets its official unveiling, and the Musk versus OpenAI trial, while the jury begins deliberating next week. Verdict watch starts Monday, so if anything leaks over the weekend or if anything materializes, we'll make sure to cover it for you on Monday. And that's your morning intelligence for Friday, May 15th, 2026. You like what you heard? Hit subscribe from wherever you're listening. Share this episode with that one friend who keeps asking you, hey, what's going on in the world of AI? You know who they are. I'm Don Michalik. Thank you so much for listening and have an awesome Friday and an awesome weekend.